Great. Everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. I'm excited to have Paul Grimm here with us. So I'll do a quick intro. Megan Neff, Director of Venture Development at Red One Ventures. I work with our life science clients, so advising them on everything from product market fit to building their capital access plan. So excited to be with you here today.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. Paul Grimm, co-founder and CEO of Myoptechs. We're a recently formed startup developing a new type of contact lens that we're very thrilled to tell you about today.
All right, Paul, well, that's a perfect segue. So tell me about yourself. What's your background? How did you get here? Give us a little bit about your story.
Sure. Anybody here work currently in life sciences or worked in big life sciences companies in the past? I know my colleague Robin Sears certainly has, and nice to see some other hands in the room. So I started carrying the bag in a very traditional path in big pharmaceutical about 18 years ago, working for GlaxoSmithKline. And when I reference this traditional path, oftentimes high-performing sales representatives climb the ladder into sales training, sales management, or marketing leadership roles. So I spent the last 18 years in life sciences doing just that, working my way up from frontline sales rep to marketing lead. I was fortunate to work for a big pharmaceutical company. It was purchased by another big pharmaceutical company. And then I connected with Mr. Robin Sears at Abbott Nutrition. And the way that these companies that I've worked for in a marketing or product management standpoint, they really treat the marketeer as the hub of the business. And so really the product manager, the senior product manager, the marketing director owns the P&L, owns the life cycle of the products. And so it's really being a general manager of the business. And so about 4.5 years ago, I started talking with Robin, who had left Abbott Nutrition, to join the world of startups. And it was a very natural transition to utilizing those skills over the prior 18 years in leadership and product management into creating new things, which has been incredibly impactful.
So lots of experience in life science, product management, really owning the success of your product or product line, ultimately business. So your connection to Robin, what came of that? Obviously, I think we all have an idea, but...
Yeah, so I also didn't qualify. Robin is, he raised his hands in the back of the room. He's chairman of our board, and as well as our holding company. He's one of the most visionary leaders I've ever worked for. And so he paints a picture of the need for innovation and finding technologies in underserved populations where there's a huge opportunity. And so it's a very compelling vision to ultimately find a new technology, see its value in the market, see how it can serve a tremendous amount of patients. And so I joined Robin, his business partner, Brad Biesecker, as I mentioned, about 4 years ago, working on another startup contact lens that is still a company to this day, Myoptechs, which is for a completely different eye disease. It's presbyopia. So I spend my days working some of my time on a contact lens for older people, and then, as we'll talk about, Myoptechs is a contact lens for younger people.
So contact lenses, that's a perfect segue to...
We didn't practice any of these segues. These are all very natural segues.
Dr. Tom Rosh. So if you can, share a little bit about how you got connected with Dr. Rosh and give the transition to myopia management.
Sure thing. So this is one of those, because we worked in contact lenses and we started to get to know people. Dr. Rosh had been a consultant of ours on the other company that I referenced, Myoptechs, and worked closely with Robin. And so Dr. Rosh believed that, and he has, created a better solution for myopia control or myopia management contact lens. We'll talk about the disease here in a minute, and put Robin by name on the Invention Disclosure Form, from Invention Disclosure Form in Ohio State. And so that led the folks at the Ohio State Innovation Foundation, who we know through Myoptechs, also an OSU licensed technology, to reach out to our group, and that started conversations. I'm so glad you mentioned Dr. Rosh because I'm a co-founder of Myoptechs, and Dr. Rosh, as well as Robin and Brad, are other co-founders, and we obviously couldn't have launched this technology and started working on it without an amazing invention by a world-renowned vision scientist. Tom doesn't want to talk about that, but I will tell you, as a compliment to aspire to, we were talking to a consultant, just a little attention there for a second, but it's about Tom. We were talking to a consultant who couldn't work on our project. It was just sort of out of his scope, if you will. He's an optometrist down in Houston. And it has declined to me via email. He said, I'm jealous you get to work with Dr. Tom Rosh. He's on my Mount Rushmore of vision scientists, which gives me goosebumps to say. I aspire to be on someone's Mount Rushmore someday. So thanks, Tom, for letting me brag on you a little bit. I know you hate it.
If you can, give us what is myopia, what is the mission and vision you guys are working towards, and just give the audience a quick little overview of myopia management.
Sure thing. I suppose, if you don't mind me asking, we're not signing any HIPAA disclosures today. Is anybody in the room vision corrected or have an experience with being vision corrected? Sure. Yeah. So we've got some glasses wearers and contact lens wearers. Perhaps are any of those, just raise their hands, are you myopes? Are you myopic? So your prescription would have a minus in the front of it. So currently, about 28% of the global population is myopic. And the World Health Organization has deemed myopia one of the next great health epidemics. In the next 25 years, the prevalence of myopes will double. By 2050, half of the world will be myopic. And myopia is more commonly known as nearsightedness. So it means you see better up close, worse at a distance. So the traditional method of addressing myopia is fixing the challenge at a distance. Now what's been discovered, and I'll show a slide now, has been the linkage between myopia, and along with that worsening distance vision comes an elongation of the eye. So I'm going to have a slide that shows an elongated eye, but that elongated eye causes disruption to the back of the eye. And so what research has shown, what you can see with the chart on the right there, is a corresponding level of myopia, low, medium, and high. Those figures -1 to -3, or -3 to -6, or -6 and above. And a myope's increased risk for some pretty scary eye conditions versus a non-myope. So when you look at things like glaucoma, where the average person walking around, the average prevalence of glaucoma is about 1.5% of the U.S. population. So you can see on screen the increased risk of a severe myope for glaucoma or retinal detachment. And so we're working in this very opportunistically in this huge market. It's the middle of a paradigm shift where myopia used to be treated with what we call single vision contact lenses or glasses that just fix the distance vision. And now there are new optical correction methods and new pharmaceuticals that are being run through FDA that actually treat myopia like a disease, slowing the progression, right? So the goal is to slow the progression, slow the eye growth, so the myopia doesn't get as bad as moderate or severe, to keep as many people in that low risk category as possible. And in this whole new wave of optical correction, there's various different ways to do it: contact lenses, special glasses, pharmaceuticals. A lot of the technology, specifically in contact lenses, is dusted off technology from another disease state. And so, candidly, it's a contact lens used for older people. It was found to work to slow the progression of the disease. And so what Dr. Rosh did is he actually created a unique design that completely separates Myoptechs from the rest of the pack in this optical correction innovation for myopia.
So You shared a little bit about your background. We'll get into the actual technology and what makes the contact here very unique in a second. So you spoke about your understanding and experience in product management, sales, marketing. How does Myoptechs and the technology align itself with your general professional understanding, and how does the mission of myopia, what kind of drew you to that?
Yeah, so prior to working at Myoptechs, the most rewarding experience in my career was working on a line of business for Abbott Nutrition that we call pediatric specialty. Candidly, much like we take eyesight for granted, most people walking around take some pretty basic fundamental nutrition for granted as well. And so I ran a $200 million business for Abbott that was literally focused on kids that had severe food allergies, inborn errors of metabolism, couldn't tolerate mother's milk, couldn't tolerate the most specialized formulas that you find on shelf, or needed to be tube fed. We were talking about the most at-risk kiddos. And comparatively, right, we're talking about disease myopia that starts very young. Myopia starts to develop, for those of you that raised their hands. I think Jeremiah maybe shared it from the state of Ohio with us earlier this week in the meeting, but 6 or 7 years old, I couldn't see the board at the back of the room in school. Right? That's oftentimes how it presents, and for a lot of myopes, it progresses very quickly. So the opportunity to help a younger population slow the progression of this disease, because candidly, the eye is fully developed for most people by the time we're 20, 22 years old. And so once the damage is done early, it's done. Right? It's sort of irreversible. Once the eye is of that length where it's disrupted the back of the eye and causes some of those challenges. So as far as sort of a worthy population, there's no better populations to serve, in my personal opinion, than kids and old people. No offense, I'm probably using the wrong terminology, right? But so population and needed innovation, tremendous strategic landscape. So certainly when you look at big eye care and the current chess pieces on the board as we speak about innovation that's already out there, but an opportunity to differentiate with something completely unique versus something that was dusted off from another disease state, and then just the scope of what's possible. And we're early, right? So I referenced a quarter of the population is currently myopic, and there's this shift from the old way of treating it to the new way where Myoptechs is innovating this optical correction for myopia control. Over the next 25 years, it's only going to get worse. So we've got an opportunity to make an impact really early.
So let's get into the technology, shall we?
Cool.
So you mentioned a little bit about the competitive products, what's on the market today. What really makes this contact lens different from other existing solutions?
Excellent. Let's backtrack here for a second, if you don't mind, just so I can show
Absolutely.
a giant side view of the eye. And so what you see here on the right is a profile view of an eye, and it actually has what's called a multifocal contact lens. We didn't try the pointer, but we'll try it now. There you go. Multifocal contact lens here on the front. And in a myopic eye, I should be letting Tom teach this. In a myopic eye, the focus of light comes to a focus in front of the retina. And so the goal of treating that distance vision challenge is to, this is how I explain it, it's probably not explained this way in school, is to walk back the focus of light to where it hits on the retina at the fovea for that good distance vision. So there's a minus in that prescription. And so what this yellow cone of light represents is light coming through for distance vision. So what the blue cones of light represent, and this is where the new technology and the new sort of mechanism of action of these new, what's called multifocal contact lenses for myopia control and myopia management, is it shortens the focus of light in the periphery by adding additional power. So you've got a contact lens that's powered with multiple powers, basically one for the distance vision and one for light that comes through the periphery that we don't really need. for good, crisp, clear foveal vision. And by shortening the focus of light in the periphery, it generates an optical signal, which is a signal for the eye to stop growing or to slow growth. So that fundamentally, this has been clinically proven. One of our medical advisors, Dr. Jeff Walleen, did some of the formative research at Ohio State. And so fundamentally, it's a clinically proven optical phenomena that this multifocal technology slows eye growth and slows myopia progression. In the studies that have been done so far, it basically slows myopia progression by about 50%. And then you can see on screen, and the other thing is the connections has to be prescribed or given to kids when they're younger, and the eyes are still developing to have an impact. And you can also see some big dollar signs there at the bottom of the screen, which show in serving all these, literally, it'll be 5 billion myopes. I know when you're selling something, you're not supposed to use more big words like billion. It will literally be 10 or more. There'll be 5 billion myopes. And about 1.5 billion of those will be severe myopes by 2050. And so that correlates very naturally to a tremendous TAM and then SOM and SAM for what we're playing as well. So that's those figures on the bottom of the screen as we build towards it. So what Dr. Roche has done is create a completely different design than what's currently used, and that's design at the top left of the screen. And ultimately, that optical signal that I talked about, Dr. Roche's design maximizes the amount of light that the contact lens uses to generate that optical signal, which is called myopic defocus. That's a little confusing because in this case, defocus in the periphery is a good thing. But his invention of Myoptechs work does it better. So what you see over probably my giant head, is a really cool looking top-down look at our contact lens. That green area in the middle is what's powered to fix the distance visual challenge. So that fixes distance vision. And then those really unique shapes that we call facets, so our patent-pending faceted optical system, adds power in the periphery to shorten shorten the focus, those blue cones of light that we saw on that prior slide. And each one of those facets is perfectly powered to do it better than current technology on the market. So the core of the IP, the core of Dr. Roche's invention has to do with the size and the shape of those facets. You can see sort of if we zoom into the contact lens surface, and you can't see these with the naked eye because we're talking about 12 to 15 microns, are these little bumps which provide the most effective add power on the market today via retinal imaging simulation. And the other thing you'll notice is those facets really cover a large portion of the contact lens, and so more light in the periphery is coming through a region that generates that optical signal, which helps contribute to that stop signal for eye growth. Are you okay with that, Tom? Okay.
Great.
All right, thanks. World-renowned vision scientist, and I get to explain this technology and work on it. It's a privilege every day.
I have to say, I have to give Paul a little plug here. I've had the pleasure of working with him periodically throughout the last year, and he knows the technology in and out. So that's what you want in a business lead, and just partnering with Dr. Raj, it has been very impressive to watch. So good job, Paul.
Just trying to joke around a little bit.
So, the technology, obviously very interesting, potentially, very changing and innovative to the standard of care. Obviously, as a startup, things do not always go as planned. There are some challenges that you face, especially with commercializing technology from academic institutions. So, what are some of the things that you've run into in the last year or two when getting this technology company off the ground, and how have you kind of mitigated some of those challenges?
It's a great question, and when we first talked about what these questions might be, this is a tough one. I mean, we finalized our license with OSIP 9 months ago. We'll talk about the progress we've made here in a minute. We've made a substantial amount of progress in a few areas, but we have a prototype in hand, and our first clinical study will literally begin, depending upon the schedule of students at OSU who just left for winter break. Could be as early as the end of this week or early next week. So we have a prototype in hand. We've gone from an idea and some designs that Tom put together to finalized designs, to molded contact lenses in 9 months. And that's largely due to our relationships that we have with Myoptechs. We sort of knew where to go to get this done. But even still, I think we've sort of blown away our own expectations about how fast we've created a prototype. So that's gone very well. I think to answer Megan's question more directly, anybody trying to raise money right now? Yeah, it's a challenging time to raise money in these markets. I've been hearing about it for years. I was fortunate to attend a great life sciences conference in New Jersey in the spring. And the head of JP Morgan's healthcare division, who reports to Jamie Dimon, showed the chart of funding in biotech through 2021, and then it dropped off a cliff, in 2022. And so, it's been a challenging time to raise money, and obviously this is a bit of a cliche answer, you always want more time. And then, there's been some duplication of work related to the licensee-licensor relationship, specifically around intellectual property. That protects both entities, that protects Myoptechs as well as protects Ohio State and OSIP. But largely it's, those three things. Tough time to raise money, time, it's a duplication of efforts related to IP work. But largely, that's not the focus, because we've been pretty successful in these first 9 months.
Yeah, I don't want to take your thunder, but what have you been able to accomplish over the last couple months? I will say, watching from the outside, it's been, I think, really impressive and exciting to see some of the early traction and validation that you've received in the market.
Thanks for saying that, Megan. So we've been super fortunate, got to recognize some key partners. Sant is a holding company that's provided funding to help get us off the ground, as well as some non-dilutive funding from Rev 1 Ventures and the Ohio Department of Development from its Technology Validation and Startup Fund. So with those core funds, we've been able to achieve what I would describe as our any company's pre-seed objective, which is ultimately get a prototype in hand. So we started with that work that I talked about before, which was our own look at the intellectual property. OSIP took the, not to get any patent lawyers, by the way, in the room. Sometimes there's some folks who they consider Porter right. Anyways, we updated the prior art search to make sure we were sort of clear to operate, as well as validated the work that OSIP had done. And then, because the stage of the patent was at PCT, there had been an international search report created, and a few patents that that investigator called out. So we took a look at basically the entire landscape of IP to ensure that we were differentiated and patentable. Along with outside counsel, we had an amazing, actually connection through Rev 1. Holly Kozlowski at Porter Wright, who works with one of my colleagues at Abbott, who's got best in the state, just to give a plug for Porter Wright and Holly, helped us update the claim set, and then file in all of our priority markets, priority dates, which were just these last couple of months. So to go from doing our own diligence on the IP, and then working with Ohio State, this is where the duplication of efforts, because Ohio State has their own IP council, Myoptechs has our own IP council, and then bringing all the lawyers together and file the IP in the priority markets by end of the year. We did that. Next really was finalizing design, so these are all happening in parallel, right, not staggered. So Tom hit the ground running and working with a manufacturing partner to translate his design into principles that they needed to start making contact lenses. And then we knew we found the right partner when they were able to make the shape that I show you on the screen, and we can see that with advanced metrology, advanced optics. They did it the first try. Wasn't perfect version of it. It took 7 or 8 different manufacturing runs. But then we had finalized vetted prototypes with the right optics, the right size of the contact lens. Literally have packaged and sterilized. Anybody wears contact lenses, they come in what's called blister packs. I have blister packs of contact lenses in my office, waiting to start this first clinical trial, to which we should start within the next week, which is really tremendous. And the first priority of this initial vision pilot, number 1, is to test visual acuity first and foremost at distance, to make sure that those advanced optics around that green zone on the screen still behind me don't do anything to mess up distance vision. Because first and foremost, you want to make sure distance vision is exceptional while you're slowing eye growth without really the patient even knowing or having any disturbance in vision.
Paul is being a little humble. Paul, what conference did you go to earlier this year that you received recognition for, and what was that recognition at the conference?
That's very nice. It's called Bio New Jersey. Participated amongst like 40 startups, and Myoptechs won Best Startup Pitch.
Very impressive, right? So yeah, I mean, obviously, Paul, you have a lot going on. Fundraising, major next steps. You mentioned the clinical trials. Can you speak a little bit about, over the next 12, 18, 24 months, what your major milestones are and what Myoptechs is working toward?
Great question. So our next year is focused on what we're calling our early clinical development plan. It's a series of interrelated experiments that will ultimately get us to 2 very good prototypes that we will take into extended on-eye testing, which will be at least a 6-month clinical trial in kids, which will show us that this contact lens, one of the contact lenses, maybe both, wouldn't it be great to have 2 winning prototypes sort of at the end of that 6 months or not? Actually show that it works better than, I mentioned before, single vision contact lenses, and then another multifocal contact lens. Actually show that Myoptechs slows eye growth and thereby slows myopia progression better than what's on market. And that takes anywhere initially on eye from 3 months to 6 months to see that actually happening. By our estimates and Dr. Rosh's modeling, as I mentioned before, current optics and optical correction for myopia control slows progression by about 50% versus single vision contact lenses. Dr. Rosh has projected that the Myoptechs design will slow progression by 70% over current multifocal contact lenses, right? Because you look to be innovative and you look to beat what is becoming the standard of care, those multifocal dual focus contact lenses. So our goal is to be with this unique, specifically designed contact lens for myopia control, better than current optics, and all signs point to that being possible, which is really exciting. The other cool thing about all these clinical trials is these contact lenses actually stop myopia progression in a sliver of patients, which is remarkable when we talk about serving all of these people worldwide. Currently, the standard of care is multifocal optics that were used for other disease states, and they found that they worked on kids, stop myopia in about 1 in 5 patients. That's remarkable. So we also had Tom look at those data, and Tom saw potentially a doubling. If current standard of care can stop it in 1 in 5, we can stop it in 2 in 5 as modeled. Okay, we're very early, but that's the end game, right? Slowing myopia and potentially stopping it in kiddos.
So major milestones on the clinical trial front. Are you thinking about adding any team members in the next couple years? You have obviously the resources from Dr. Rosh, clinical expertise, the team from Sant. Any other major team members that you're thinking of adding at any point in time?
Great question. So as we get bigger, we like to look at the landscape of fractional subject matter. Someone to sort of lead our medical expertise. That could potentially turn into a larger assignment for an individual, as well as having some representation and quality, which is certainly important when you're working medical devices to get that set up, even though we can rely on our partners to do that too. So those would be two areas where we probably amp up our focus with some additional dedicated people hours.
Awesome. So lots of exciting things on the in the future for Myoptechs. I have a bit of a fun question for you. Maybe I'm not totally sure if you think it'll be fun. But you've been at this for a little over a year. You've been working with Robin and team for a while. At this point in time, what do you wish you would have known about leading a startup company, commercializing technology, fundraising? What do you wish you would have known earlier that would have helped you now?
Specifically related to Myoptechs, I'm blessed to have had the experiences with Myoptechs to help me be a better leader, as well as sort of see some of those hurdles. So, I think you learn the need for an ongoing investor relations strategy. So we're trying to do a better job of that with Myoptechs, constantly engaged in communication with not only investors for the money we're trying to raise now. We're trying to raise a couple of $1 million to fund that early clinical development plan that we talked about, and we've got about $600,000 already non-dilutive extra in the door. So we're super excited about that. So I'm still trying to raise to complete this whole next year. But talking to investors who would invest in the next round after that. So it's a comprehensive investor relations strategy. So we're utilizing some unique tactics to help with that. I think that'd be the biggest thing, candidly, in the fundraising world, in the importance of investor relations.
Investor relations, I will say, plug for Rev 1, we definitely have a handful of educational learning modules on investor relations and corporate governance. So sorry for doing that, but I had to.
It's true.
Paul has been an active user of Rev 1 services, for sure.
Yes, I think that's the other thing that I didn't take for granted, given experience in a couple of the other startups that it's a bit of an oxymoron. We're more well-established startups when I joined the team that I referenced before. But as an engaged client of Rev 1, Myoptechs is taking advantage, to Megan's point, of the various learning labs, the expertise of a couple of very experienced advisors, and with that experience comes, tremendous, opportunity to access their networks, and no one I've ever, really in any professional setting, is afraid to help, right? Literally, or connect. All you have to do is ask, ultimately, and so, being an engaged client of Rev 1 has been super informative for me and super helpful. I'd like to compliment Dewey Rice. He's in the back of the room. Dewey, for example, has helped me create some really cool videos. He's a highly talented graphic designer as well, to help with some of that investor relations tactical execution that I referenced before.
So I'm gonna do a quick switcheroo on the questions. So we're in our last couple. What advice would you have for people that are looking to start a company, entrepreneurs that are kind of either in the concept or prototype stages of their company? What advice would you have for them as they embark on this journey?
It's kind of stage dependent. I think depending upon to Megan's point, but I think first and foremost, I would find a mentor who's been there before, find someone who has walked those steps before you to help lead lead your thinking and guide your path. Second would be to build your network, as fast as possible. And I'm not taking it for granted the fact that Myoptechs was exposed to a network in eye care, given my other experience in Myoptechs. So I think that's been really like a 4-year journey. So being someone new, I think the first couple of things would be find a mentor, network, and again, get involved with someone like Rev One Ventures as an engaged client, go through their process, you'll learn a ton. Even someone with 4 years of startup experience, I learned a lot going through the process.
And it has been very fun to watch you get all this traction and reach the point of fundraising. So kudos to you guys and the rest of the team. Last question before we open it up to the audience. You talked a lot about your upcoming milestones, what you hope to achieve in the coming years. If you had a crystal ball, where would you see Myoptechs in the future, and where do you want to see Myoptechs in the future?
It's a great question. This slide kind of highlights what we talked about so far today and what 2024 is focused on. So where I would see us in the future is, having a successful fundraise to achieve our early clinical development plan in 2024. As I referenced before, trying to raise a couple $1 million still. So I would love to talk to anybody about that. If you're so inclined or know anybody that likes to invest in pediatric life sciences innovation, and there's no better population to serve, at least for me personally, than these kiddos. After this 2024 early clinical development plan work, as we take out more bites of the apple and creating value, we would do another raise to fund extended on-eye clinical testing that I referenced before, and find a strategic partner along the way. It's a real graduate school case study when you look at this strategic landscape and all the different partners that Myoptechs has approached and could approach and could partner with. The goal would be finding a suitable partner that needs the next level of innovation and efficacy in myopia control as the paradigm completely shifts in eye care to this myopia control or myopia management technology. And while we'll plan to own the business forever, certainly a successful transfer of the technology is first and foremost on our radar, given how we study the landscape.
Amazing. Well, excited to continue to work with you, Paul, and thank you so much for joining us this morning for this conversation. I was really looking forward to it. Opening it up to the audience for any questions for Paul, and we'll walk around